words.
Order. I call this meeting to order. This is the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. I'm Chris Palmer, MLA for Kings West and the chair of the committee. Today we'll not be hearing from presenters in any topic, but we'll be instead holding an agenda-setting meeting. We'll be selecting our topics for the next round. And at this time, I'd like to ask everybody to please put your phones on silent. And in the case of an emergency, we will use the Granville Street exit and walk up to the Grand Parade. I'll ask the committee now to introduce themselves and their constituency, and we'll begin with MLA Barkos.
Thank you. Danielle Barkos, MLA, Chester St. Margaret's.
Good afternoon, guys. MLA for Glace-Payne Dominion, John White.
Afternoon, Tom Taggart, MLA, Colchester North.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Steve Craig, MLA for Sackville Cobequid.
Hi, Gary Burrell, Halifax Shabakto.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Tony Ince, Cole Harbour.
And I am Ben Jessam. I represent Hammonds Plains, Lucasville.
And for all those watching out there, I'd also like to note the presence of Chief Legislative Counsel Gordon Hebb to my left and Legislative Committee Clerk Tamara Nuseba to my right. So we will begin with our agenda-setting portion of our meeting, and I'll begin with the PC caucus to put forward their topics. MLA Barkos.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the first topic for the PC caucus be an update on veterans trade programs with representatives from the Nova Scotia Community College Helmets to Hard Hats, Nova Scotia Apprenticeship Agency, and the Development of Labor Skills in Immigration. I move that the second topic for the PC caucus be veteran entrepreneurship with representatives from the Prince Trust Canada and alumni for their veteran and military apprenticeship program. And our third topic, I move that the third topic for the PC caucus be an update on Veterans Affairs Canada's program and supports in Nova Scotia with, and please apologize if I get this wrong, Musa Drome. All right, we all have different versions of that. Area Director of Nova Scotia as the witness.
So thank you, MLA Barkos. You put all your topics into one motion.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's a motion on the table. Is there any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. The PCs are selected their topics. We'll move on to our Liberal caucus. MLA Ince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we put on the agenda for a topic and the Desmond Inquiry, final report and recommendations. I request that we could have members from the Department of Justice, Deputy Minister Candace Thomas, and other representatives from the Department of Justice. Also, representatives from the Department of Military Relations, please.
Okay, motion on the table. Is there any discussion? MLA Burrell.
I wonder if the Liberal Party would be open to including in the list of witnesses representatives from the Department of Health and Wellness and the Health Authority, both of which are implicated in the implications of the inquiry.
MLA Ince.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be agreeable to that.
Is there MLA Craig?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would not be agreeable to that, to those two additions. I would be, though, agreeable to adding mental health and addictions, which I think is would be more appropriate in this particular case when it comes to the particular topic at hand.
So there's an original motion on the table. We would have to have an amendment. We have to have an amendment. Right. So, no. So okay. So MLA Burrell, I recognized you first. So do you want to make an amendment to the original motion?
Certainly.
Okay, MLA Burrell.
I move that the motion be expanded to include representatives from the Department of Health and Wellness and the Nova Scotia Health Authority.
So we will vote on the amended motion. Sorry, on the amended to the motion. Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. Motion is defeated. MLA Craig, would you like to put an amendment forward to the original motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would like to move that we add to the list of witnesses for this particular motion the Office of the Mental Health and Addictions.
Is there any discussion around that? None. We'll vote. All those in favor of the amendment to the motion say aye. 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 All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Yeah, so we'll now vote on the amended motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Okay, MLA Ince or MLA Jessam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For our second topic, for another time, I'd like to bring back the discussion of updating the committee's mandate. At a previous agenda-setting meeting, we had discussed bringing it back at a later date. There has been some, I guess, discussion on whether that was the intention at the time, but I'm happy to table the correspondence from Hansard if necessary. But I do believe that we did have consensus at the last agenda-setting meeting that this would be discussed at a future meeting, and I would like to submit it as the topic for the Liberal caucus in this round of agenda setting. Thank you.
From MLA Jessam, is there any discussion around that? MLA Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've talked about this, and you in particular, the honourable member across, for many years. Expanding the motion or the mission, the mandate, I think, is not relevant at this point. We've canvassed other legislative bodies, and they've come back basically in the negative that they don't have the mandates within their area, that it is a federal area. I think it is good work that this committee does under the current mandate, and I would like to not entertain having a topic at it like this.
MLA Jessam.
I'll just take this opportunity to read previous comments from the Conservative Party into the record. At our February...
MLA Jessam, just want to make a correction. It's Progressive Conservative.
Excuse me. At our previous meeting, MLA Barco said, although this is absolutely a worthwhile issue, the agreement was just signed in June, referring to the terms of reference for Seamless Canada. We think we should give it some time to see how it functions, coordinates throughout the country before we make changes at our committee. This is not a no. This is just a not right now. It's too new for us to start making changes. The discussion further goes on, referencing comments made by MLA Lachance. I think I have a couple comments on this. I actually think it's perfectly legitimate to look at mandates of legislative committees to make sure they're functioning well and doing what we need them to do. However, I think that for that to be done and be much more comfortable with a little bit more study around to see what exists in other provinces and territories, what they cover, how they function, and how they're actually building. We're not making this up as we go along. So I say that because I will refer to a later comment from MLA Barcos. It's not that we're against it, but I'm wondering if the clerk can do a scan maybe to come back to the committee for us to review before approving the motion. Again, we're not against it. We just want to ensure that a mandate falls within provincial jurisdiction because, as you know, most of this is federal. And the chair goes on to further state that's similar to what I think MLA Lachance said. I think it's good reinforcement of the suggestion. I've just been consulting with the clerk. I think that this approach is this is the approach that I'm going to suggest, with your permission, that the clerk do a scan of other jurisdictions and look at practices. And I go on, this is referencing a comment that I made. I believe this is a reasonable first step. What I would ask in response is, when should the committee anticipate the completion of the jurisdictional scan or review of possible committee mandates? The chair, I think this can be dealt with in committee business at a future meeting that we would have. So all that to say, I'm kind of jumping around a couple different things, but I'm happy to table this for clarification. It is in Hansard. We've done a bit of a jurisdictional scan, which I think it was as agreed upon by everybody at the time, a reasonable first step. I don't think that there's any reason why this is not a thoughtful thing to do after, any period of time. We can always try to do better. We can always try to improve the way we function as a committee. There are, as agreed upon by through the terms of reference with respect to Seamless Canada, there is a role for provincial governments to play with respect to the ongoing support and oversight around issues related to military families. And I really believe that this is an opportunity for us to do some good work here, expand what this committee has the capability to do and the issues that we cover. We can continue down the road of saying that, things don't fall under the provincial government, but I don't believe that that's in the best interests of the Nova Scotians that we have the ability to serve on this committee. And I'd just like to remind everyone for the record of the previous transcript and the fact that we were all in agreement at one point in time on this.
Thank you, Emma. And I'm not sure if you were suggesting that we were all in favor of changing the mandate or in favor of a conversation. So I just wanted to ask you again, if you could, to table the document with the clerk. Thank you. MLA Barkos, or Taggart, who had your hand? MLA Taggart. Yep.
So I guess I'll start by saying that, I understand the members' passion for active duty serving members. I absolutely agree with it. But that's a federal government issue, okay? And as much as it's a worthy cause, it's a federal government issue, and it's clear to me they could do a better job given the trouble they're having recruiting. But I won't get into that. And some of the things that have been brought up in this committee, they probably should listen to. I do recall a Veterans Affairs meeting not too long ago that was totally dominated by a conversation about active serving members and housing and ability to feed themselves and that sort of thing. And I made my feelings known at that time with respect to who was responsible and didn't believe it belonged at this table. And like I say, it's a worthy cause. It does make sense for this committee to be meeting on a regular basis about an issue. It does not make any sense to meet on a regular basis about an issue that we have no control over. Now, these are my personal thoughts, so don't want them associated in any way with anyone else. But veterans are very important to me, and I think history has shown that we as a society, as governments, as folks, positions of responsibility, didn't do a great job of looking after veterans when they come home from World War I and World War II. And we all know a lot of veterans who have come home from places of conflict and different situations that we've sent them into that probably none of us could ever even imagine. And those, what I might refer to, and this is the wrong wording, but as newer veterans, we recognize the way how they've been struggling and where they need help. And I personally am not interested and will not support a change in the mandate that takes this committee's focus away from veterans and moves it to active duty serving members, which are, again, I need to reiterate, I have the greatest respect for them, but they have a government that is completely responsible for them. And it's my view that this committee should remain as a Veterans Affairs Committee. Thank you.
MLA Craig. Oh, sorry, MLA Ince.
No, first.
Oh, okay.
He was first.
Sorry,
Yep.
MLA Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm struggling with expanding the scope of this committee. I truly am. Where we don't have any authority, where we are the only province that does this. And we're either very progressive, which I think we are, or we're fine where we are here doing what we do. I wonder, Mr. Chair, if the member could just expand a little bit more on the reasoning behind this. And yes, I know that the member has a passion for this and has talked about this quite a bit since the first time he was on this committee. And being a dependent and being from a military town, it's really important that we do serve those who serve. There's no question about that. From an organizational point of view, I'm trying to wrap my head around, and I need to understand why we would expand this further if we don't have any authority to actually make a difference. If we're going to be a sounding board so people can talk, that's one thing. We're a legislative committee. So that's where I'm really having difficulty in understanding what it is we're trying to achieve here. Because we can certainly open it up to dependents. We can open it up to RCMP members. We can open it up to so many things. Just at what point do we lose laser focus? And I don't know what that is. I don't know the answer. And maybe the member has some of that information too, which would help me in deciding which way I'm going to go on this ultimately. But to simply expand a mandate of a committee without a specific goal in mind, I think is wrong. We should always examine what we've done in the past, what we're doing now, with the ability to improve. And that improvement doesn't always mean expanding the scope. It could also mean doing things of what we're doing now better. So, Mr. Chair, through you to the member, that's where I'm struggling here.
So, thank you, MLA Craig. So I think, so if I interpret what you're saying, you're asking MLA Jessam, your topic title is updating the committee mandate. I think what MLA Craig is maybe asking for is something more specific around that, MLA Craig? Is that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is, and especially in light of the fact that we have gone out to other legislative bodies in Canada, provincial and territorial,
Okay.
and it is a federal mandate. The other groups have the veterans covered off in other committees, in committee structure, and do not bring it together in a specific focal point.
Okay, so I guess MLA Jessam, maybe you have updating the committee mandate. Maybe I think in response to MLA Craig, ask you to be more specific about is your topic, exactly what your topic might be there. MLA Jessam.
So thank you for the interest and the question through the chair. When I initially brought this forward, it was a focus on the work that Seamless Canada does, specifically having to do with military families and spouses. There was discussion at that, I believe it was, I'll reference my notes that are over there, but I believe it was February of last year. We seemed to have some discussion that it wasn't a change that we were willing to make on the fly with that specific directive. We've had a chance to look at some other jurisdictions, and I think that the point of applying it to this agenda setting process is so that we can have a fulsome conversation around what the future of the committee could look like. And I guess the reason for leaving it open-ended was because of that feedback that we received from the NDP, from the PC caucus in that February meeting. And there was agreement to bring it forward at a later date from the chair, from the member opposite, and I'm just trying to get it back onto the agenda so that, you know, we can have perhaps a more robust conversation around what it could look like. Just a little bit of feedback. I mean, the provincial government has preferential hiring policy for military personnel, retired military personnel. Provincial government has made changes to things like credentialing for physicians in the recent past. I think that it's not unreasonable to suggest that there is a difference or a distinction between the serving active members and their families. And I believe that, you know, we would all agree that they serve with their spouse or their military member of the family. And I think that based on that acknowledgement of the issues that do fall under the roof of the provincial government as agreed upon through the Seamless Canada Terms of Reference, there is a lane for us as a provincial government to take some ownership for these issues that fall clearly under the roof of the provincial government. So if I can happily bring back another more targeted motion at a later date to try and tighten up the ask, but it was open-ended based on the feedback that we had received at a previous meeting, that the work that we have undertaken to look at what other jurisdictions do, and you know, have a more fulsome conversation about what next steps might look like. And perhaps it doesn't change down the road, but at least it gives us an opportunity to revisit this. I've said many occasions, I've been on this committee for a little while. I think there's an opportunity here. You know, I'll humbly admit that, you know, it wasn't something that I had looked at too significantly prior to the last couple of years, but Seamless has been a group that's kind of come on more recently, and the work that they do is frankly work that does interest me, and I think interests the people that we serve, and the province does absolutely have a role to play in serving military families and spouses. So I guess I'll just leave that for feedback.
Okay. Thank you, MLA Jessam. I have MLA Ince, then MLA Taggart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, I want to thank actually my colleagues across the floor first, because nobody said no. What I'm hearing clearly, and you can correct me if I've gotten something wrong, but, you know, feeling that we have no jurisdiction over certain aspects of, I guess my colleagues ask, that you don't think it's pertinent or it's really relevant to bring to this table, because as my colleague had mentioned, Mr. Craig, we don't want to be a sounding board. I believe my colleague has been trying to, Mr. Jessam, has been trying to express that he'd like to discuss it a bit further. And like Mr. Craig had mentioned, he'd like a little bit more direction, advice, or you know, clarity on what it is that my colleague is asking. So, and it seems that future discussion that we were talking about, we're having today, which is great. I would stand by my colleague to say that I would love the opportunity for us to have a further discussion, and I would take the liberty to say that we can go back, dig a little deeper to bring you something on the table so that it's a little more clear for you as to what it is we are wishing to discuss. I thank you all for, your passions as well, your connections with, the military service and those who have served on all levels, and Mr. Taggart and everyone else. So I say all that to say I stand with my colleague. I would love the opportunity for us to, because we are the only committee in the country, to have a deeper discussion on this issue. And, I would support my colleague, and we could go back and bring you something that's a little bit more clear if that is would help us bring this to the table. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. MLA Taggart.
Thank you, Chair. I first want to say that comments by different members of this committee does not represent a commitment by this committee, okay? And that was that's not just what's inferred in this discussion, but it was what was said in a previous discussion, that we had made a commitment. I'm not aware of that commitment. I guess I won't say a lot here. It's just that I'm sure as I'm sitting here that if we include active duty members, which again I absolutely support. Okay, I have a lot of friends that are active duty. I also have a lot of friends that are veterans that are struggling. But I'm just as sure as I'm sitting here that if we include active duty in this committee, veterans will be the losers, and I'm not prepared to support that. Thank you.
MLA Barkos.
Thank you. So we did commit. I mean, we've been like a year and a half now kicking this can back and forth to looking at it. And we got back, I think, 2 or 3 letters. I'm not too sure how many letters we got back from other provinces in regards to this. There was, I have trouble piecing some of this together. Like, you had stated that the province has preferences to hiring retired military personnel. I don't know, I can't quite connect dots and whatnots to it, but how can I put this? Well, we actively engage in the way that works best to address issues that are important to military members and their families with the federal government and the Canadian Armed Forces. We do this. I think we do this well. And I won't speak for the others, but I do believe we do this well. And I believe that when we have witnesses here, we have a wholesome conversation about, we've talked about families before. We have talked about, well, it was never a topic, but it was brought up in situations from my memory. So I don't know. I guess we're just, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess we're just keep going back and forth on this. And I think today we probably hear where we stand.
Okay, MLA Jessom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I only referenced the, for example, the hiring policy as work that, or an acknowledgement that there is a role to play for the provincial government. I mean, I had been specific about the issues as they pertain to military families. The government minister of the day has signed on to the seamless terms of reference as an acknowledgement that there is a role to play for the provincial government with respect to issues that are facing our military members and their families. And we're not talking about making a decision today on what the committee's mandate could look like. What I'm asking for is to add it to our committee's agenda for a later date so that all parties can make suggestions on how this how this committee's agenda can improve. You know, we have discussed it on a number of occasions, simply because there was an appetite to bring it forward at a later date, but we have not set that later date. And I'm not saying that that is a firm commitment on changing things from the government. Like matter of factly, it is an opportunity to discuss it at a later date. And if we do that, then all parties have an opportunity to put forward suggestions on what improvements can be made. I don't frankly agree that it takes away from the issues of veterans. I think that any veteran would agree that serving, you know, the interests of their families and active service, you know, people would be a reasonable and acceptable step for the change of this committee. So I don't want to go too far down the road. If the government is not prepared to accept it as a topic, I think we've heard from them at this point. I won't belabor it, but again, it's specific to a discussion that we had some agreement on previously at the previous agenda setting meeting, where we were going to undertake a jurisdictional scan to see what other provinces do, and we were going to have a subsequent conversation, which I think we can all prepare to do at a later date as per the process that we're following here today, and adding it to the agenda for a later date.
So I know a few comments have been made about the jurisdictional scan, the responses we received. So we still have to hear from 3. So we have now heard from 8 total, I believe, correct? Well, 4 more, I'm sorry. So we heard from 8. So I just wanted to add that into the conversation there. MLA Craig.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for this conversation. And it's important that we, I think, consider and look at all aspects of this. I note in the motion that there are no witnesses. I would be comfortable in the proponent of this if we vote yes, that the member would bring back well-reasoned, well-thought-out, well-prepared, well-presented reasons why the existing mandate and why changes and what those might be, similar to what the honourable member would have been responsible for in an R&R, a report and recommendation. Not simply, well, we have this letter and the rest of it, but well thought out, well documented for discussion, rather than having many members to come in and prepare for this particular topic. So it is important. I'm struggling to understand, yet I'm willing to listen to well-reasoned, well-presented arguments as to what it is now and how that fits in the scope of other federal, provincial, territorial governments and the roles and responsibilities associated with it. When it comes down to a mandate, I think it's very important that we are spot on and we know our reason for being. Some might argue that there's no reason for a committee like this, a legislative committee. Others argue it is. And I'm not taking one side or the other at this point. But certainly it's, I've always believed in process improvements and relooking at things. And to that, if the member and the Liberal Party would stand behind that and make sure that declaration is done and it's presented in such a way that we're not left wondering, that they've covered off all the factors, they know what it is we do now, they know why it is we do it now, and where we are going with any particular changes or no changes. Change in focus, change in emphasis, whatever that might be. So to put a final point on this conversation until the next time, under probably the next legislature, I'd be prepared to support that if that's what the member and the Liberal caucus would do.
So, all right, I think we're getting close here. So did you have your hand up, MLA Ince? I did. Yeah. Okay, MLA Ince, I'll give the floor to you.
And it's going to be very quick because my colleague across the floor, Mr. Craig, has basically taken the window to my sails on what I was about to say, so thank you.
Well, it's quite a day, isn't it? Okay, MLA Jessom?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that, and I would suggest that to put it on the agenda for a future date. That's the intent behind this, and I would invite all members and all parties to reflect on, the scope of this committee and how we all might see it improved or changed, or if we're comfortable with where it is at today, then status quo is just showing up to the meeting. But this, if we place it on our agenda for a future date, that gives our caucus the ability to have that conversation, to present that case, the NDP and the PC party as well. So if I'm hearing, we might be like, if it's not an official agenda item, then when are we going to have this? When are we going to have the conversation again? And what's the format for that? Like, I think we're almost taking away from another topic to get this at committee for further discussion. So I think that another committee meeting is part of, I'll put it on the floor for our agenda item. We can vote on that, and if it's not an acceptable next agenda item, we have a follow-up motion to make. But I think that's the preferred mechanism. Happy to present it at a later date in terms of the rationale for changing the mandate, and would invite others to do the same.
Okay, MLA White. I want to give everybody their opportunity. MLA White.
Thank you, Chair. So as a substituting member here, I'm open ears, I'm listening. And I'll be honest with you, what I heard so far, if I was to cast a vote now, I would vote no. And I would vote no for this reason. I see us as a provincial committee, and I see us using time to work on things that we can have an impact on. And when I look at your three motions that you had here, I see one with no witnesses, and I'm questioning what's the committee actually doing. I realize what you're trying to say. I get it. I understand you're trying to develop more thought, and it's certainly a place that's worthy of shining a light in the corner and seeing what's in there. Let's look at this. But I see us taking away a topic that does have witnesses that could be functional. And that is something that I think MLA Taggart touched on, that about taking away the opportunity that exists with this committee. So I put my hand up because I think I'm taking my lead from this side. How they vote is what I'm going to vote. I want you to know that, because I'm not a sitting committee member. But I didn't hear an argument enough to make me in my own head sitting here today and say, yeah, that's changed. I think there's a solution in what Emily Craig just offered to come back with a more of a detail as what it is you want to look at. And I put my hand up to ask this. Isn't it possible for you to hold off on your second choice right now and do that during committee business on your next meeting? Gives you a month instead of kicking it down the road to another agenda setting meeting, which is 6 months down the road. So can you not come back next month with a better argument, or to help us understand exactly why you want to do this, and put your second topic in at that meeting? I know we've done it on other committees.
MLA Jessom.
So I guess that's again, based on feedback that we had discussed at a previous agenda setting meeting, that we needed to do more and come back at a later date to discuss it. Frankly, based on the level of conversation that I think is positive that we've had today, I don't believe that without embedding this as a part of our agenda for a future date, that the last 15 minutes or less of the committee provides enough opportunity for us to have the conversation that I feel it warrants, which is why, you know, I think we are going a bit in circles here. Like, are we? Is it okay to bring it back for as a part of this committee's agenda? Like, it's our call to put our.
Yeah, I think there's a call to put the question. So you're voting on MLA Jessum's topic motion. So all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Thank you. Okay, motion is carried. Okay.
We put forward for the committee's consideration the issue that spouses of veterans who marry after the age of 60 are not entitled, under the present regime, to the automatic survivor pensions that are available to the spouses of veterans who have married prior to the age of 60. This is an issue of great concern in the veterans community. It's been much part of the discourse of veterans associations. It has been canvassed by the House of Commons Veterans Committee. It has a big impact in Nova Scotia, and I recommend that, I move that we bring this topic before the Veterans Committee.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Is there any discussion around MLA Burrell's motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion is carried. So that concludes our agenda setting for the next round of topics for our committee. We'll move on to committee business. Just a discussion around some correspondence from Deputy Minister Melissa McKinnon in regards to a request for information from our December 19th meeting regarding veteran identifiers and departmental programs. We would have all received that. Is there any discussion on that correspondence? MLA Jessum.
Just note that this is excellent information, I thought. I mean, I think we all stand to benefit from seeing that there is actually, in fact, identifiers from different departments, and yeah, perhaps this is, I mean, it is public record as per. This is something that we should potentially follow up with. I guess I can do that personally, but we had a couple of previous committee presenters talk about the value of data and their effort to try and collect more data, and perhaps there's benefit to sharing this kind of interdepartmental scan of what data they might be able to receive with an ask from the province, or an ask to the province. This is the bottom line. This is helpful, and I appreciate the committee entertaining this, and the department, Department of Intergovernmental Affairs, excuse me, for putting this together.
Thank you, MLA Jessum. No further discussion on that. We will move on to further responses that we had received by the clerk in our sending out requests to other jurisdictions around their veterans affairs, or do they have any committees? We received some more, as we discussed earlier. There's still 4 more to receive. Is there any discussion around the responses we received? Okay. Seeing none, is there any other business? Seeing none, our next meeting will be the use and availability of Veterans Affairs Canada long-term care beds in Nova Scotia. And our witnesses will be from the Camp Hill, Nova Scotia Health, Royal Canadian Legion, Nova Scotia Nunavut Command, Veterans Affairs Canada. And other than that, I guess we'll adjourn the meeting. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Thank you.